I am Joshua K. Sabra, Esquire, and he is Dr. Miles Salisbury. And you are listening to the Miles Ahead podcast, where we share tactics, techniques, and protocol to improve your physical, mental, and spiritual health while you walk the path of the warrior. Stay tuned. In today's episode, Dr. Miles and I discuss what's in our social media feeds, what our social media feeds say about our values, and how parasocial relationships can have a positive and potentially negative impact on your life, and why we should all follow Andrew Tate. Stay tuned. Oh yeah.
And we are back in the office this time. It's pretty amazing. No Zoom today.
I really appreciate being in here so I can continue my 44-part therapy session.
Your free therapy by proxy. Yeah, I'm back in. I'm ambulatory. I've got a boot on. I'm not in the peg leg. It's fucking crazy to be able to just walk again, even though it's not really walking. It's more like shuffling. But
freedom.
Yeah. I can't drive, so thanks for picking me up.
Yeah. Well, of course. In the movie version, of course, I'll be played by Ben Affleck. You'll be played by Matt Damon.
That's my favorite movie, by the way. Talking about Good Will Hunting, it's my favorite movie. One of the best ever therapy movies out there.
Understated therapy movie.
Yeah.
Which is the way to do it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's the only movie where the therapist isn't like some villainous creep, soft hands cardigan guy, or like some hot blonde chick with glasses. Like, it's usually one of the two. Like, what? And in Hollywood, there's like this archetypal mental health professional, psychiatrist type, and those are usually the two that show up. And they're always like weird and nefarious. Except for that show, Shrinking, which is completely fake. Those guys all would have lost their licenses 12 times over. But it's, on balance, a pretty good show, pretty funny. They humanize them more and make them more likable and more normal, so to speak.
They do a good job, to your point. They exaggerate the archetype, right, of,
yes,
I am a quote-unquote professional who never has any break. You don't even know where I'm from. Like you can't have rapport with your patients, right?
You should, yes.
Right? And then the guy who is like, I'm here to fix you because there's something wrong with me.
Yeah, and you can stay at my house and we'll do therapy 24/7. Like, it's not going to work out well, probably.
And that Jason Segel's character and the person he's letting a patient stay at his house, and this idea that if someone doesn't feel safe, I'm going to make them feel safe. I'm going to create safety for them. Mm-hmm. And you can't.
Yeah, I get this sentiment, but sediment
right.
Is geology. Yeah, I get it, but that's not. I mean, that's a whole nother podcast on ethics and blah, blah, blah. Would never happen in the real world, folks. Let's just say that. Unless you're paying for some sort of life therapy coach that lives in and is doing coaching, not psychotherapy. It's completely different. You can't, we wouldn't be able to do psychotherapy 24/7 with somebody. I can barely do it with my own self at home with my own family. Like, that's just not realistic. But in Hollywood, you can overplay these things and overstate the point, which is what they're trying to do. Which makes sense. Anyways, tangents. There are squirrels this morning with a coffee in hand and ADD. So, what are we talking about? I'm walking.
We're talking about you being ambulatory. We're talking about Good Will Hunting. No, today's discussion is about social media and what it says about you. And I didn't think I would like this conversation, but as I started to study, when I say study, I mean listen to other podcasts about social media. But I because the phone is so good with your algorithms, it immediately picked up I was looking for this stuff, and
it's not listening at all.
Multiple TED Talks came up about parasocial relationships. Multiple podcasts talking about parasocial. Jonathan Haidt popped up.
I was going to say you probably got The Anxious Generation book.
So, some really good stuff, but there in the last 3 years specifically, the social media jumped the shark from demographic dominance to the penultimate psychographic dominance.
Ooh.
So it went from what it would guess about you, which demographics, they say demographics are destiny in many ways.
More like primes you. I don't think it's destiny, but it can prime you.
But if you want a predictive sense of your outcomes, go to your zip code.
Yeah, if you don't do anything, make any changes, think. Yeah.
So, not think.
Be aware.
Change.
Well, ultimately change, yeah. Well, before that, you got to notice.
Maybe. We'll talk about that. So demographics is destiny. Now psychographics. So the For You feed was your age, your sex, your sexual preference, your, and hobbies, things that you chose.
Like by liking things and stuff?
Yeah. Well, no. So
how do they know this?
So Facebook started the news feed was your social network, and it morphed over the years to things that you selected and chose, and things about you, like your sports team's preference, your those things
you're following.
And then as it drifted to hobbies and also watch time.
That's crazy, watch time.
We started to have the psychographic shape the feed more than the demographic. And now this is where it's called the TikTok. It's been named the TikTokification of the internet, because now to go viral, it's easy because if something is good and gets traction and lands in the zeitgeist of the psyche of the culture, then it will catch fire, and it's a lot easier to go viral now than it was 3 years ago, because you don't need a certain number. I mean, I'm not a social media expert, but it used to be you could create a recipe for a viral post. Now it's much more organic because the algorithm has changed to be more responsive to the way that people are engaging with it.
Like that Hoktua chick or whatever. She's like a millionaire now. I love it. She's like, I'm going to take all of your money. And good on her. But humans are so dumb. But you can't not get her in your feed for like a week. Like, it's not in mine anymore, but it showed up. That's the only reason I know about it. People are like making fun of it.
She made a podcast.
She was on Whitney Cummings' podcast. I don't know if she made a podcast, but she people are making memes out of her over and over and over. So there you go. That's pretty funny.
Well, and there's a little moment of insight there, because she had a viral moment, but she also has a personality. Right. And I don't know what it is. I haven't seen, I've seen the 3-second clip of her talking. I haven't seen her on Rogan or whatever.
The Whitney Cummings one, I guess, just saw a clip of. She's pretty funny.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you have to have a personality to make up something on the spot that was something like funny and deliver it, which she had decent delivery.
For sure.
But the point of this feed, this podcast here today, is to reveal what your algorithm believes about you and what may or may not be true, but and to get a sense of where that information is coming from, but most importantly for me, why, like, so we're going to get into our feeds here in a second, but I'm curious, and as I started to lean into this a little bit more, I think I have a little bit more self-awareness now for what is navigating my social media feed, and I don't know what to do with that.
And you want to cultivate it, curate it, because you're being influenced, and a lot of people spend a lot of freaking time on their phones. Luckily, I'm a Gen Xer, and I just can't do it. When I doom scroll, I get depressed and stop. Thank God. Like, I can't do it. I just can't. I do not understand it. But there are a lot of people grow up with the phones and they can't get off. So you're being influenced and taught passively about things in the world, and it can become very echo chambery or cut off from the rest of the world if you're not careful. And I played around by like just liking everything. So like politically, I get stuff from everywhere, which can be kind of a shit show too. But yeah, I think this ultimate goal is like, what do you want to put in your mind? What do you want to learn? How do you want to use this as a tool? Because a lot of people, it's like just turning on the TV and flipping through the channels rather than looking on the scheduled programming and deciding what you want to watch. I think that's how it was done back in the day. Now it's a version of this on social media. You can't look ahead. It's just there. Whatever comes up, depending on your cultivation and curation of your own feed.
Well, and your consumption habits. So let's talk about what's in your feed. So we're gonna go back and forth between what's in your feed and then what is true about parasocial relationships, which is one-way relationships with fictional or celebrity characters, where you have emotional response to them,
right?
And not they do.
They even know you exist.
But so we're gonna talk about parasocial relationships, and we're gonna talk about what we get from them, what we don't get from them. But we want to start with give me one or two or three figures in your news feed, or not news feed, God world, like where it's Facebook 2008, right? Like, okay, on your social media. So tell me what social media you're on most organically for you, and then what the figures are, the top two or three.
Yeah, that dictates like what are you on. Like I will never be on TikTok. I never have. I just cannot comprehend watching 2-second videos over, and I feel like watching reality TV. I feel like I'm getting dumber doing it. I cannot even fathom it. I use Instagram the most probably, and the Facebook second, and I don't have any other one. I don't, unless it's I count YouTube maybe. Okay. Sometimes YouTube,
Instagram,
and I don't know how these things work. Like there's like a discover page where you go look for things. My wife had to show me that this was a thing, and people actually go there and look for things and put hashtags in and a word. That's like 3 extra steps I don't even want to bother with. So I'm barely on this crap. And so when she showed me it, it was like I had tons of sports, politics, and then like Connor was joking about this. Connor Beaton on his podcast was like, he could really like women pole vaulting, like essentially like sexy sports. I was getting a lot of sexy sports. And then like 1 week I had like women breastfeeding. It's like, what in the hell is this thing thinking I want? But apparently a lot of guys got hit with that one for some reason, like women breastfeeding. Because I think you could show a boob on Instagram if it's breastfeeding and it'd be sexy. And like they're trying to hook people into probably OnlyFans or some rabbit hole.
Yeah. So that's another phenomenon. That's the
thirst traps.
All of the internet and even mainstream marketing is moving towards OnlyFans.
That's wild.
So it's like Instagram used to be, of course, sex always sells. So you want to see attractive people.
Correct.
But it's moving towards softcore porn, right? Like Cinemax kind of stuff. But let's okay. So Instagram, Facebook, and maybe YouTube. Yep. All right, give me your top 2 or 3 folks that you see more than once that you enjoy seeing.
Huberman Lab, Connor, and then like Arsenal posts. A ton of sports, basically. Okay,
so he's looking at soccer scores. Andrew Huberman
comes in there. It's more like like psychology, medical, and then sports is the most, and then politics, and then female pole vaulting.
Okay. So then there's threads of these let's call them seams. These different seams of media come in the sexy sports to see if you get distracted by when I first started watching TikTok, I was trying to train my algorithm and see what would happen. The first like 10 videos are of not women breastfeeding, but women like doing jumping jacks with sports bras, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, they're gonna see if I'm gonna watch boobs,
right,
or if I'm gonna move on to the next thing.
How long you look at it, and then that's wild.
So there's these themes of media, and they're like, okay, what is you're gonna be distracted by? What's gonna hit your amygdala.
Your thirst trap, as they call it. Like, that's a legit term, thirst trap.
The thirst trap. So, so there these themes of media are popping up. So, medical information, psychological conversations, and the personalities therein are kind of the main of your feed.
And like, is it like threads of like coaching and parenting advice and things like that?
Parenting advice is a big one. Okay. And the things, okay, what is going to, what are you going to get distracted with? So if you're online, which one will you start to go through the feed and actually like, oh, this is cool. So
like, what will I actually pay attention to?
Yeah.
Connor's stuff, I'll listen to his, or it's more like reading. I can't watch, I don't know, I was just AD. I can't watch videos. I'll check out. Yeah, I can't be talked at on a video. That's why I can't understand how people watch podcasts. I just check out. So with something with words, I'll more likely read it, unless it's funny. There's this guy, I think his handle's Nobody Cares Anthony, this guy from Boston who makes fun of like misspelled billboards and things like that. That shit's hilarious to me. I'll watch him. Those kind of videos, I'll watch him. But otherwise, it's usually something I'll read and get some information from, or if it's like something sports related, I'll read it.
Comedy and text-based feeds.
Yeah. Rarely is it a video unless it's a comedy. Yeah, I'll check out.
Okay, so what is it about? Well, we'll get into this because sometimes you send me things from your immediate feed that you think are funny.
It's usually comedy. Yeah.
So comedy is going to be your kind of this scroll stopper. It's going to stop you from scroll.
Yeah, certain people only. Yeah.
Okay. So, in my feed, I would say it is business, 99%, health influencer, there's like maybe three, business and health influencers. And I will get a little bit of finance stuff, like very little, like Scott Galloway from the Prof G podcast talk about,
the Profit First author.
No. I don't know who that guy is. That guy's name is Mike.
That's a good book.
Yeah, it's a great book. Professor Galloway is he's got a podcast called Prof G. He's on the Pivot podcast, and he does a TED Talk about stealing generational wealth from the current generation. But he's writing a book on masculinities. I really enjoy listening to him talk.
Cool.
So that's my feed. So
no female pole vaulting.
No, there are very few sexy women on my feed. They exist. Mm-hmm. Layla Hormozi, Alex Hormozi's wife. She's probably the best CEO leader. Her daily discussion of leadership is it's on my feed. And if she's saying, her videos are so long though, I know if I stop, that's going to be 7 whole minutes, which
no way.
Now we're really, really echoing how chipmunky our minds are. But
yeah.
So we've got our 3 that we like. Okay. Now what do you see that offends you on your feed?
I never get offended because that's a ridiculous word. Like, that's about me. Like, I don't have to have an opinion about this. I try to be very stoic about it in the capital S sense. I know that they're trying to be inflammatory. I know it's probably a Russian bot. I do get irritated, but I don't get offended. I don't want to be that fragile.
I love this. What would be an example of something that you is like, this is a Russian bot?
Politics, man. It's always like, dude, do you know this is fake? Or like the Atlantic has just been putting out every day some reason for why the Democrats lost to Trump. And it's like, so like reachy, like, and I dig deeper. I look in the comments. I'm like, isn't me like, am I the one seeing this? And it's like people calling it out. I'm a Democrat, and this is definitely propaganda. And then I see stuff on like the Daily Wire and things like that too. And it's like, you'd be like, come on, man. Like, this is so clickbaity. At least, the Daily Wire is not a Russian bot, but you know where they're coming from. At least.
For sure.
Like, but some of this stuff is, and the Atlantic used to be
just in case you don't know where they're coming from, and your Daily Wire is the founder is Ben Shapiro.
Great debater, though. Great debater.
A very thoughtful, high intellect person.
High intellect, yeah. But definitely right-leaning.
It's definitely rage baity.
Yeah, it can be. And the Atlantic's got that way, too. I used to really like that magazine, and it was sort of middle of the road. Now it's definitely not. It's sort of like where the New York Times went, and that's just got to come back, man. You just got to stick to the facts. Be like Reuters, just tell me what's happening. I don't want everything to be a hit piece or opinion piece.
So let's
hit pieces and opinion pieces seem to irritate me, but I never get offended because I know
sure. But I like that. We were talking about this in the car, and I was saying that I see often just things that are incorrect.
Yep.
And I'm not offended. And I'm just like, I just scroll past it because I'm like, this is nonsense and it's irrelevant. And it doesn't mean that I don't have an opinion. It just means that I don't want to engage with something that is it doesn't hold the frame, right? And it doesn't. I want to give examples, but but basically, there's headlines are split tested so that they will see what gets the most clicks, and the more aggravating the headline, the more clicks it gets. But what you've outlined is one of the kind of the key variables in this is the narratives of events in news and politics are always changing because they're trying to get a narrative that engages you personally.
If you're aware, you're going to notice that in the goalposts moving. I don't trust that, so I'm always going to have a bag of salt and a grain of salt with someone that does that. Like I'm about trust, and I'm not going to feel safe if I don't trust you. So that kind of crap, just like in my mind, you're already taking a step in the wrong direction. But I think maybe a lot of people aren't. Not to say I'm some sort of like holier than thou person, but maybe some people aren't paying attention. They don't notice the goalpost moving like that, or they don't get any other of that showing up in their feed, and they get one narrative from one magazine, and then they're off.
Well, the amount of you can tell that, and it doesn't matter what your political persuasion is. People think that like so the thing that I noted from people on the left and the right are how they believe violence is coming for them.
Right.
And like, it doesn't matter like what you are. I have many friends on the right who voted Trump, and they're like, there's going to be riots. And there was nothing. And anarchy, capital USA.
Surprising.
No.
There was like one mini protest like in Pioneer Square.
And then, well, it's going to happen in January. No, it's not. There's no violence coming.
I hope not.
Everyone's life is too good in America. I don't hate to break it to you. If you're listening to this podcast from your iPhone, your life is too good. You are not going to go out and get shot in the face with rubber bullets.
Yes.
No one is doing that.
That is a true statement.
But on both sides, people are like, think that there's someone coming for them.
Yeah. I'm going to be deported, or everyone's getting deported, or free speech is leaving. Both sides are arguing that free speech is leaving, which is strange.
And the deported thing, it doesn't crack me up. What the people who are confidently like, oh yeah, Trump's going to deport 20 million illegal people, or 12 million.
No.
I was like, could you imagine?
No way.
All of a sudden, the federal government is going to be amazing at finding people, and we're going to all of a sudden create this competency that we haven't seen since World War II.
Right.
Now we're all of a sudden going to be able to do it. No one's
it's
nothing's happening. And like, it's threatening and it's fear mongering. Is like, yes, that's what we're talking about. The narrative is out of control.
And that's, by the way, we need probably some of those immigrants to stay for our economy.
It's not this is not a political podcast. So I want to get back to so what are we getting from these relationships? So we're going to switch over to what's happening. So parasocial relationships are the one-way relationships we have with those people in our feed and celebrities, fictional characters in books that we might read.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, anyone in your life that you admire and love, that you don't get, that they don't know that you exist, right? So the parasocial relationship is one way, but you are getting real benefits from it because it's triggering emotions in you.
Yep.
So there's a couple of things, and if you want to listen to the TED Talks on this, I advise it. It's fun. There's a couple of things that are happening. Number one, the people in our feeds that we are gravitating, they're talking about the problems that we personally have, the way that we personally see them. So the context and the subject are the things that, so already we have alignment on a couple of things with those people in our feeds.
Hence the echo chamber effect for some of these.
For sure. But the parasocial relationships are not just negative, as some people think social media is just negative.
If you cultivate it.
And so when Miles is listening to his these experts in his feed talk about things, he doesn't exactly believe everything that Andrew Huberman believes, but he is getting exposed to ideas, the way that the point of view, the process by which these other people are examining these things, and
this mostly happens in podcasts for me, by the way. Much less on social media. Big time on podcasts. That's where I spend most of my time on my phone is podcasts.
Right. And so it's in one hand you could say that parasocial relationships are fake. On the other hand, you could say sometimes they're the only real conversation that we get to have that is being shared by someone who cares about the things we care about, that we actually trust, and who maybe is able to teach us something by the way that they show up and hold the frame.
Yep.
And so the parasocial relationships are a low friction, positive relationship that can boost you get dopamine hits from them. And in studies, low self-esteem people and high self-esteem people both get benefit from parasocial relationships with, even if fictional characters, whatever.
Sure.
But low self-esteem people, when they are depressed, they will not seek out other people to have meaningful, supportive relationships with. They'll stick with in that way, it's sort of like parasocial relationships are like porn. You get a dopamine hit. Correct. There's no friction from the person on the other end. There's also not that much of an upside. There's a low ceiling to how much you can get in that dynamic. And then you can get way toxic, right? And we talk about the behaviors on the OnlyFans, or the way that the values that you're playing out in those different relationships.
And then you might shame yourself and beat yourself up afterwards.
Causing a negative feedback. Yeah, absolutely.
And it's a good point about depression too. Like there's that lethargy or anhedonic component where you just feel meh or not have the energy to go make a change or do something different. But you don't want to just sit there in silence and with your thoughts. So you just push the same button over and over and over.
So exactly. And the social media feed that you're in, it is a reflection of your values, right? Like my feed would just seem silly to you, right? Because you'd be like, oh, it's just a bunch of people talking about their $1 billion businesses. And that would be like a flex. And I'm listening for the way they're solving problems. I'm listening to how they handle interpersonal conflict and how they stay focused. What are the ways that they are viewing the world? And but it's a reflection of the way that I engage with things, and they do it in a way that matches my values.
And maybe you'll be a millionaire one day, anyways, or a billionaire. Because of
a millionaire, you just need a home and no debt. That's pretty easy.
That's why I changed it to the B.
But they're all people who are very big in the fitness industry, right? They either started in the fitness industry or they are still in the fitness industry. So there's a health component that is organic to it. There's lots of things, right? But let's go to the things that make you mad, right? So let's go to your shadow values, right? So
shadow side. There we go.
When you rage bait, right? People, when you violate someone's sense of internal values, they show obvious disloyalty. They show obvious cowardice. They show obvious manipulative behavior. They show obvious, whatever is a violation of your values.
And if you're talking about shadow side, then you're saying those really piss me off, and those people are bad without realizing, I probably have those same things within me. I just don't want to look at them. And that's why they're kicking out so much heat right now. Like, though those people are being very manipulative. I hate manipulative people. And then you look at your shadow side and you're like, I think sometimes I can be kind of manipulative, but I don't want to own that.
Well, there's that. And then there's B, they're doing something I could never do.
Yes. Yeah. That's all maybe a golden shadow.
Well, or just envy, right? So
Or envy,
let's tackle Andrew Tate, because Andrew Tate has, they say Trump's a poor person's idea of a rich person.
Interesting.
Because only a cartoon character would have a golden house with golden toilets with gold, like rich people don't have golden toilets. Like, why?
No.
Trump does.
Are you serious?
Yes.
No. No. Really?
Like how you can't even believe it.
No. Since when? Since since the 80s?
These are just old. These are tropes, right? So,
wow.
So
is that legit for real?
Yeah.
Confirmed fact. He's got golden toilets.
Yeah. Look. Oh my God. Like whatever gaudy thing you think is too much, like
he's probably got it.
Yeah. So the reason that he makes people laugh, right, is he's a good stand-up comedian.
He's like an archetype.
But he's a caricature. And Andrew Tate, right?
Damn.
If you don't know who Andrew Tate is, he's a former kickboxer who was actually a talented kickboxer, and he became a digital pimp. So he runs these cam girl operations. And he basically is a social media troll who smokes cigars, eats steaks, makes millions of dollars in his social media or digital empire.
And for $39.95 a month, you can be part of his movement or whatever it is, right?
$10,000 a year if you go to his live.
There we go. We were talking about this on our last podcast, and it came up in our How to Work with Men's retreat. And if you're a young man looking for a tribe and you're lonely and you don't stumble upon Connor Beaton or Trevor Boehm, which would be great for you if you find these guys.
Yeah. And what he's exhibiting is all the things that if you don't have any power.
You're right.
If you don't have...
At 19, you don't have any of those things.
If you don't have physicality and you're not confident in yourself, someone who is, if you are afraid of women and you don't have...
Or hate them.
Or hate them, exactly. If you want to control women and you think it's cool to be a pimp, well, there you go. You got your digital pimp right there. So you have all this sort of flex, which is gross to most people, most thoughtful people. And also he's doing things that are legitimately hard to do. Like it is difficult to be a world champion kickboxer.
And make that much money, but he's making it off people's suffering and shadow sides. But does he have gold toilets?
But people can follow him because they're offended. They can follow him because they see him doing things that they wish they could do or things that disgust them even.
So people will follow him because they're offended.
A lot of people, yeah.
What is wrong with you? Why would you want... That offends me. That's like, what do we call that? Stockholm syndrome or something? Or what's going on here? Why would you do that? Why would you subject yourself?
You're the psychologist.
I'm just kind of putting it out there. Yeah, I'd have to sit and think about that, but it's like masochistic.
What is it that makes toxic relationships sticky relationships?
There you go. That's a good question. Yeah, that's probably it. Maybe there's some shadow side aspect. Maybe there's I think that's probably it. Shadow. That's where I go first. Like, I hate this guy. Everything he stands for is everything I would never stand for, but part of me really likes the fact that he can make money, or he knows how to reach people, or he can reach these heights. He can just say whatever he wants, and that doesn't have to filter himself. And I'm the kind of person that walks in eggshells and is always afraid about what other people think. Well, this guy can just do whatever the hell he wants. Maybe there's some pull there to just see that play out for you.
Well, and it's like his response is like, oh, people don't like me because I say what I think, or because I'm not afraid to, tell women what I think of them or whatever. And he is to masculinity what Donald Trump is to wealth. Like, yes, Donald Trump is a billionaire, but most people, what they would want if they were a billionaire is they would want an empire that doesn't steal from charities and with other people who would like to do business with them more than once, because he robs the people that he does business for or does business with. And
these confirmed facts?
Yeah. He just took all the shares that one of the board members for True Social, he retracted their shares, his shares, and gave them to Melania. And I think he was compensated, but he didn't give consent to that. So he didn't steal them, but he basically took his ownership share from the company, gave it to his wife.
Which is legal, but it's sort of like poor form.
Well, whether it was inside a feud, whether that was decided for other reasons, it doesn't matter. It's the kind of thing that what you're going to do is like, if Bill Gates did that and he wanted to form another board, people would be like, no.
I'm sure that guy's done some shady shit.
Of course. And the point is not whether or not it works or whether or not other people do it. Is, do you want that?
Yes.
Do you want that life?
Right.
And
does it feel good?
That's the to go back to your social media feed. If my social media, it's not the advice that matters, it's the person giving the advice. And that's having a very keen eye for who is doing the talking versus what they are saying. So to that point, Donald Trump has said many things. I'm like, yeah, I agree with that. Right? That doesn't mean I want to take his advice. Andrew Tate sometimes says things that are true. Great.
Yeah.
That's not the argument. We're not saying it. It's, do you want that person's life? Do you want to be like that person? And for me, the reason why I watch podcasts like the Blocks podcast, I watch the video, is my nervous system needs to see how that person feels about it, not the words they're saying. And when they talk about something, I can see the sensitivity that they have around it. And so whether it's a red hot issue for them emotionally or it's something they don't care about, and it needs to land in my nervous system the way that someone wraps their mind around something. So I'm trying to take in so much of who is doing the talking, not what they're saying. So Jerry Seinfeld, when he is adjusting or he's walking back something he said and he's rethinking it, he's a comedian that I admire, and
he's good,
and he's just so brutally honest that I love.
Yeah.
So I want to see what that looks like and sounds like from someone who has wisdom and lives in a way that I would want to emulate.
Yeah, it's pretty consistent with what he says.
So parasocial relationships are frictionless, one-way relationships where we have positive feelings and we get something out of it. And we get more out of it if we have comedy or commonality with the person who is giving something back to us. So the shadow, the things that aggravate us or in rage bait us or whatever, those are a reflection of our, a violation of a norm or a value that we have.
Or a shadow side value.
Or shadow side value, exactly. So I think it's wise to say, why don't I like that? Like what, if something comes up that's a friction point for me, I'll give you a really tiny example. A business conversation that I like Alex Hormozy's content, and he's talking about something that many business owners know about, and Gary Vaynerchuk has said before. When you're doing a business deal, the goal isn't to get the maximum extraction of value from the person you're in business with. So that means that if I'm selling Miles's product and I get 30%, I don't want to take 50% or 60% of the margin. Is I want to leave enough to where Miles still wants to have a profitable relationship with me, not just do my job, but actually make it good for Miles so that I don't want to eat the term is taking all the meat off the bone. I don't want to make it a losing proposition for him to where he could go to another person and get a better deal doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So that it's a mindset of generosity when you're doing these deals. It's like, okay, 40% would be better for me, but I'm going to take 35 because I want to make sure it's a win for Miles and that at the end of the day, it works out.
You're preserving the relationship.
And yeah, as you're preserving the relationship and you're also building your network of people who want to do business with you again.
Social proof. That person will say.
Social capital.
Social capital. Okay, there you go. So that's the social proof.
And social proof. Yeah, you're right. Right. And so now, and a lot of times in small business, sometimes business owners really don't know what a win for them is, or they want to get the deal done. So I'll say it out loud. I'll say, hey, I want this to be a win for you. What does that look like? Not what's the cheapest price you have to offer, because I don't want to just be another line item on their list. If I call, I want them to pick up.
Yeah,
and say,
exactly.
This is important. Josh needs help.
Yeah.
And so what's a win for you? And that elicits a completely different, we're not negotiating down. I'm negotiating up. I got that from Jerry Seinfeld. When buying a rug, he's like, how do you haggle? He goes, I always ask the same question. What's the most you'll take for this?
Haggle up. I like that.
So
sounds like something from Chris Voss. It's interesting. Never split the difference.
Yeah. And like, I'm thinking the infinite game. I'm going to be in this business a long time. So, if I can't do it, I can't do it. I'm going to say, hey, Miles, you want personal training sessions at $70 an hour. I don't know how I'm supposed to do that. I technically, might be able to deliver, but it's not going to be good for me, and so you're not going to find that, but if you wanted to talk to some other people, I could introduce you, or whatever.
Great response.
And
knowing your boundaries, that's not going to be good for me, and being able to say that, that's huge, because a lot of people will just eat shit. Yeah.
So, okay, we got a little bit off topic, but in a good way. So not what you're watching, but your relationship to it. What is it triggering in you? So Alex Ramosi is saying something, and then he says something like, he's like, speak softly, take no shit. He said, if I'm winning in a football game, I want to run up the score 100-0. He's like, I want them to never want to come back. And
defeat your enemies so bad they can't recover.
Yes, but I don't think he actually, I was like, the mindset of dominant victory is certainly his mindset, like, especially in business. He's like, if I can make, 30% profit, I'll make 40%. Totally. I want you to, do that. But I don't think he's like bloodthirsty. So things like that stick with me. And I go, what don't I like for that? I want people to like me.
There we go.
I want to be kinder than necessary. And I'm the coach that puts the red shirts in the third quarter.
There you go.
Because I'm up by 40 and there's no way they're coming back. And yes, is it not going to be a smashing victory? It's going to be an obvious victory. And my red shirts need the experience. I'm thinking the infinite game.
I like that better. Yeah. That would hit my values more than the other one as well.
And you don't get that. No, now I know Alex. I've been in his company. He's
parasocial relationship.
Yeah. Well, he was my coach when Gym launched, 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So his first big company.
So you have spoken to him before.
Yeah. He's amazing. He's totally, totally talented. And he's coming from a place of absolute compassion, but he values himself, obviously, quite a bit.
There's nothing wrong with that. Just
no.
To the extent of
no, it's what's shocking when someone values themselves that much and they don't need anything from you at all. You can feel it in the conversation. Like,
absolutely.
And it almost feels like dispassionate empathy because they're like, I'm good. I'm a billionaire. I do not need, you don't have to buy. I don't care if you win at your business or not. I mean, I care. I want you to win. But
sure. It doesn't affect me personally.
Yeah. There's no, I'm not going to be embarrassed if you fail. That should bother you. And it's great. It's a refreshing level of compassion.
Yeah. It just comes off differently because we're not used to that.
Yeah, and I think if you're coddled and someone isn't coddling you, it feels cold.
Absolutely, yeah. We're like nice guys when they think about themselves. They think they're being selfish.
Yes.
Whoa, no, that's just having a need.
And Jocko says this in one of his, he said it thousands of times probably by now, but he's like, if you're somebody who gives people the benefit of the doubt and you're thinking about firing him, you should have fired him a long time ago. Like, if you're wondering, if you're someone who never fires people and you're wondering whether or not this person should be working at your company, you should have fired him. Like, right. And on the flip side, if you're somebody who fires somebody
without thought, no coaching,
then that you need to go against your thought.
Correct.
Like, actually, did I tell them what was really needed here?
Did I take ownership? Did I properly train them? Blah blah blah.
Right. So he's like, whatever your tendency is, if it feels a little uncomfortable to you, you're probably right.
That's good. That's also examining your shadow side and yourself. That's good. Back to your point. Why is this triggering me so much? And rather than projecting onto that person or post and they're this and they're no, what is happening inside me right now and why? That's a much better question, much better exploration. Then you can just start using this social media crap for good rather than harm.
Yeah. And like, if you can, here's, I think the hack, my hack is if I can acknowledge the insecurity that's making me irritated, that's the win.
You won. Yeah.
Because when I see anything, insert anything, like when I see someone virtue signaling, this was a constant conversation. I used to work at a vegan powerlifting gym. It's Portland, Oregon, right? Of course.
It sounds like it comes off as like an oxymoron to an outsider, right? But you can absolutely be a vegan and a powerlifter, but at first glance, you're like, really?
What is happening?
What is happening? Yeah.
And it's like in any community, right? You have people that are amazing and you have people that are not amazing, but the conversation among the hardcore vegans, and Lord knows that was where they were all at.
Oh, hell yeah. And they're lifting hard.
But the conversation it's not about the environment, it's about compassion. And the tone, sometimes said out loud, but often under their breath, was, I'm a better person than you.
It comes off as the holier than thou. Yeah.
And it made me laugh. And I was irritated about it a little bit, but it mostly made me laugh because the part of me that was irritated wants to be thought of as a good person. I want a virtue signal and I want to be loved.
Yeah, I'm not bad.
And then the part of me that laughed was the part of me that remembers thinking those things myself. Like when oh, I'm better than this person because I X, Y, or Z.
We all go through that. Yeah.
And so I would chuckle. But you put me in a different context and I'll be triggered in a different way. And I may not know it as fast.
Sure. That's self-awareness.
So if I can identify the insecurity that is coming up for me when something is going on, then that is the shortcut to the thing. That when I'm arguing with my girlfriend, if I just lead with, hey, I'm insecure about this because I want you to be attracted to me, or I want you to think I'm smart, or I want you to whatever. So I feel insecure. Boom. It disarms it. No more projection. No more, we can get right to the heart of it.
We call it name it to tame it in my field. Like, what is going on? Oh, I feel X emotion because of X thing. You can immediately feel like a downregulation of your nervous system because your brain's identified the problem and sort of closed the loop. Doesn't mean it solved it, but it's like, okay, there's less uncertainty now. We can do something with this now. So that's really helpful. So you're going through, well, that example is perfect, but like in your social media, and you identify what's triggering you and you go, oh, this felt like when people virtue signal, it really pisses me off. And this is a virtue signal piece. Okay. For step 1 and 2, like, well, also, why does virtue signaling really piss me off? Do I kind of do that sometimes? Oh shit. Yeah. That's a whole nother, that's step 2 and harder for most people to do. But if you can just do step 1 and identify what's going on, like you said, you've won the day. Step 2 is shadow work, and that's all. It's harder, but of course, it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's more difficult It's easier to be a good person than it is to be perceived as a good person.
Say that again.
It's easier to be a good person than it is to be perceived as a good person.
Right. That takes more work to show off than just behave.
Yes. And the this is tying it full circle into the social media thing is like the fact that our social media is a reflection of us, good or bad. It just is. And if you are looking at things that you want to aspire to be, people that you are, that were embodying what you want to become, you could say like, well, you don't know anything about what that person. Sure, true. And I'm not arguing that. But the way that don't leave meat on the bone, be kinder than you need to others. Don't take a job that makes you miserable. These are the things that are in my feed all the time. And I should share them more, and I will.
And it reinforces what you're trying to cultivate in yourself.
That's it.
Which is using this tool properly versus mindlessly. And you're passively being influenced in ways you maybe don't want to be.
When I sent you, and I think we should wrap it with this conversation with with Jim Carrey. As I sent you a really
that was good.
A good video, and I need to post it too because I think I even quoted it today in my teaching.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a Japanese art called kintsugi, fractured vase.
Yeah, I love it with the gold.
With the gold. So when you fracture some ceramic and you mend it with golden seams, so the fractures make the ceramic more beautiful.
It's like rupture and repair in psychology.
And Jim Carrey has this, he's in a round table with these really, really great actors. And he said, there's something inside of me that's shattered into a million pieces. And when I act, the pieces come together in a new way, in a different way. And then he was talking about being injured and painting a portrait. And has said it was the most beautiful thing he's ever made. Subjective.
He's using the pain as the fuel.
But what's not subjective is that he is a great, amazing actor.
Correct.
And also he's kind of insane, but in a good way.
Most artists are.
And when I read that for the first time in my life, I felt like I can finally call myself an artist. And I said that to you, Miles, because the narrative that I'd had for so long is that when I clean up all these pieces, I'll be able to start.
Right.
Except for the pieces are the art.
That's total reframe.
And I finally got that when I saw that. And one, it's was worthwhile for this conversation because in our social media, we are essentially accidentally highlighting our values. And it is the most honest interpretation of our values because it's where our literal time goes. It's where our literal energy and our literal money goes through those social media feeds into 1980s t-shirts, to Eagles wear, to online coaching programs, to supplements, to whatever it is that you're buying. OnlyFans, if you do that. So these are not only what you value, but these are your values. And you can curate them, as you've been saying. And I think that the acknowledgement of what's going on in you is what allows you to navigate these more honestly, so that you don't end up with a bunch of what I think is kind of a Black Mirror nightmare of like, you don't want it to be a bunch of motivational videos with Arnold Schwarzenegger and pumping iron and showing montages of things that are supposed to inspire you, but you actually have no connection with. which is I've definitely done that in the past.
Of course.
And you don't want to be enraged. You want to be empowered, and you want to be filled with positive emotions and this resonance of like, other people get it. It's not just me. That's what I'm trying to do when I'm on my Instagram, is trying to say something sane in a sane way, in a useful way, and just embody that. Like, this is what it's about for me. If that's about for you, then you can follow and we can be in a conversation.
And do you ever go in and like do an audit of who you're following on like Instagram? I've done that before. Like, I don't really want this on my feed, so I'll unfollow. I've done that before. Because sometimes it's just mindlessly like going through Instagram, I might as well follow that person. And then, so I'm not really getting so much from that. So
I don't follow anyone. So I'm subscribed. I'm subscribed to about 6 people on YouTube because I consume a lot of YouTube.
6 only.
6 subscriptions, yeah.
Wow.
And I don't really know what that means because I don't feel like anything's changed, but I do get some alerts to my
I think that's it.
YouTube. But for my social media, what I did was when Instagram first happened, I just followed back everyone who knew me.
Yeah.
So I have the original, and then I hired a social media person 3 years ago, and they unfollowed almost everyone. So I do follow people, but there were people that I knew personally because I thought that's what you were doing.
Oh, so this is your business account you're talking about, or is it all the same for you?
It's all the same.
Fascinating. I have 2 separate ones. Interesting.
So now I haven't followed anybody since I've been on it, since I first downloaded the app, and but it doesn't matter. I'm still curating the feed because it's your attention, right? It's where
they're doing it anyways.
Yeah.
Whether you push like, it's the watch time like you're talking about.
Watch time and shares, and they know, and they know because they're all linked, right? So they know that there's a lot of Hormozy on my feed. There's a lot of Layla, his wife.
They're listening to us talk.
Yeah. So that doesn't bother me. I think like
doesn't bother you.
No, I am somebody who I think the algorithm in a spiritual sense, and this is my closing argument. The algorithm in a spiritual sense is a reflection of what you believe the world to be and what you would like it to be, or it's a reflection of what you are already bringing to the world, or both.
So use it as a mirror and keep that mirror clean.
How do you keep the mirror clean?
You gotta curate. Because everything we've been talking about. For me, it's like, since you don't follow anybody, for me, it's like going back and doing audits. Do I want this showing up? And if I do, why? Because I do want to be exposed to all different viewpoints. So I thought, I have to follow all these different people, but maybe I don't. Maybe I do. I'm not quite sure yet. I don't like the fact that they listen and take data and stuff. That kind of is creepy to me.
Well, it's certainly creepy, but that ship has sailed. We're here now. The ethics or the morality of it is a different podcast, but in short, what you get is, would you also like, people who bought this bought, and 6 out of 10 times it's a good book, or it's something I do want. But I'm just very pragmatic. I'm like, there is some utility to this, and then I think I don't even worry about curation. What I do is I just check into myself and say, do what I said. Am I resonating with all this stuff? In terms of like getting exposed to new ideas, I don't necessarily. This is more of like a how you kind of explore the world. It's, I don't know. Yeah. What do you mean by that?
By what?
So I want to be exposed to different ideas.
So I'm not echo chambered, because it's so easy to do. I think you listen to people talk about something like, I didn't know Donald Trump had gold toilets. So like, that's new to me, and I don't like the fact that I didn't know that. They want to know everything, so I don't get hoodwinked. I don't want to be manipulated. I hate being manipulated. that's a product of my childhood. We don't need to go into that, but that a lot of that was going on multiple fronts. So I want to know what's coming at me, and I want to just have the whole picture for wholeness. And it's kind of confusing sometimes, but you have, like Jung would say, you got to hold the tension, the opposites.
Well, when you say manipulated, Jocko would say that all leadership is manipulation.
Yeah, but do I trust that person as a leader and manipulating me? So if I don't have, if I can't touch both walls, I'm only touching one side of the wall. I don't know where the other one ends. I'm in a room. I don't know where that wall ends, so I don't know where I am in the house. I don't like that. I want to know where the walls are. Cool. Now I can maneuver. I'm in the room. If I'm just leaning against one wall, then I'm kind of like relying on just that wall to hold me up and support me. I don't know where to maneuver in the house, so I like to have the walls.
I love this conversation because you're viewing the spectrum as a horizontal chart, right? From
which can wrap around to a circle,
right? And then I view it as a depth.
That exists too.
Chart, right?
Yeah, that exists too.
And so
then you have the whole globe.
In my the way that I think of things is there's no such thing as a countervailing force. Like there is no there's a wider context, right? But there are and there are trade-offs inside of that context. But like, so let's use Peter Attia as a great example. I don't view him to have a counter. I don't think there's another side to him. Like, you know what I mean? In medicine, because he's arguing for health span and longevity. Mm-hmm. And he is only talking about the inputs that are mapping to health span and longevity. Mm-hmm. So within that frame, there's no countervailing conversation. There's no opposing view.
And he's going off stuff that's factually based and with studies and things.
It is more, he just talks about things that are more or less impactful for health span and longevity. Mm-hmm. And why he spends less time on the less impactful and more time on the more impactful. And when it comes to business, like, you know, with Hormozy, or there are different business models, but every business will function differently based on the model, but the principles are the same. The person who values the customer the most will win. And that will always be true, regardless of the model or regardless of the thing. So you want to know, you like contrast. It sounds like what I heard you say is, I want to see contrast.
Tension of the opposites.
And you want to...
And depth.
You have more information.
And more information.
And so when I'm consuming, I'm listening for, I guess that's it, strategic depth. Mm-hmm. And can someone name where they're at and what the map is around them, and then at the same time narrate their own counterfactuals? Like, say, now a good journalist does this. Now, they would say, now critics of this idea would say X, Y, or Z, and so they frame it and they say, so here's why you wouldn't do that, but tell me why you would.
Yeah, I'd like that.
And that, to your point, that creates space.
Yeah, you're not being manipulated, and it's hard to go for depth when you are having so many people pop up in your feed. But I'm also not on there a lot, so I don't care. Depth for me happens in podcasts. Sure, it doesn't happen in social media. So I have I just get a little, clips and hits, so a ton of shit. But I'm not like you, where I sit and do deep dives on a 7-minute video. I just will check out. So my brain doesn't like
this. Is how old I am, Miles. I go home and I turn on my television to YouTube and I watch the thing like it's a movie,
like a TV. I will space the fuck out. I don't know why. It's probably the ADD, but unless it's entertainment, I can't watch people talk. If it's a show or stand-up comedy, I can watch it. But
I'm so curious. So if you were watching Neil Brennan interview Jerry Seinfeld, these two comedians, two comedy writers, you wouldn't be fully engaged
for like 8 minutes, and I'd start to space out, or like start thinking about something they said and not.
How do you
pay
get through
attention.
Star Wars?
It's entertaining. It's not intellectual. I'm not watching two people talk on a couch. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I can listen to them while I'm driving, while I'm doing my morning routine, while I'm working out. There's something about ADD having the extra stimulation that, like, the only way I got through freaking grad school is doodling. I didn't take notes. I doodled. I would never go back and look at the notes I took.
Yeah.
And I would remember it because of doodling. So that's something about the way my brain works. Just goes so fast. So it can't be helped.
You just found the strategy, right? Like that's the note taking strategy.
If I could doodle while having the YouTube video on, yes, I could absolutely pay attention. I wouldn't be watching it. I'd be looking at my paper. Yeah. And I remember everything.
Cool.
It's just how my brain works. Fascinating.
Yeah. That's why I like whiteboards. I'm a visual learner. Like I like to draw pictures and charts and graphs, and infographics are good.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing these things about you is all that more helpful. We're off topic of the social media, but I love it. It's good conversation. Any closing thoughts for the audience with social media?
Just use it wisely. It's like giving a razor blade to a baby sometimes. So, I don't know. Be careful.
We didn't talk about social media's impact on the developmental health of a child, or some of the top level stuff though for adults. Watching violent content doesn't make you violent. Watching sexualized content doesn't make you a pervert, but they do lower the more of your needs, like the parasocial thing. If you get those your parasocial needs met more from online relationships than in person,
right,
then
detrimental effects.
And it all goes out the window if you are like what you're doing. If you have a relationship with men around the country and you get on a call with people you know,
yes,
that's not a parasocial. That's just a phone call with someone you know. Yep. So
just talked to a buddy in the UK on Sunday.
These online communities can become IRL communities really easily. Yep. And that's one of the many upsides to this show. So in conclusion, spend more time on your phone, I think, is what we download the podcast, subscribe, share it with your friends.
That's proper use.
And that is how you will successfully navigate the social media landscape.
Yes. Agreed. All right. Until the next.
Adios, amigos.
We're out.